It's 11 a.m. on the West Coast, 2 p.m. in New York, and wherever you are, turn off your Slack notifications, grab your favorite caffeinated beverage. It's time for a coffee break. I'm Alex Jonathan Brown, Senior Content Strategist here at Iron Horse, and today we're returning to the world of intent data, specifically looking at how your business can make it work better for you, and hopefully even a little better than it's working for your competitors. Our tour guides on this journey today, Senior Manager of Demand Generation at Netline, Josh Baez. Hi, Josh.
Hi, it's good to have you. I mean, it's good to be here, I should say. Whoa. I'm
It's
so
good to
used
be
to
had.
being the host of the webinar myself. So
There's such an added pressure for me knowing there's another webinar host on the webinar. And Director of Growth Marketing right here at Iron Horse, Ellen Smalley. Hi, Ellen.
Hello, everybody.
So we've done a couple coffee breaks about intent data before, and if you're watching this and haven't seen those, go check them out after. But I think it makes sense to kind of just assume that everybody's got the one-on-one level knowledge and not backtrack too much. Those conversations, though, have largely revolved around looking at intent data from an account level. And at least from the conversations that I've been hearing, it feels like there's a bit of a move back toward thinking about marketing the way we did 15 years ago, where the individual member of a buying group is becoming more and more important again. So I think my first question is that a real thing that feels like it's happening, or am I kind of making that up and it's just selection bias on my part?
yeah, I think that's a good way to start. So for those of you that don't know, by the way, Josh Baez, Senior Manager of Demand Gen, like Alex said. I work at Netline. We are a part of Informa, which is one of the largest organizations of events in the world. Netline specifically is the largest content syndication lead gen platform in the industry. We also have a platform, coincidentally, called Intentive, which is focused around buyer level intent data. So that kind of is the background. I'll be talking and referencing buyer level intent data a lot throughout this. But Alex, to answer your question, I think that it's been interesting in the last few years, and I think that you're not going crazy. So I'll just put that to rest right up front. I think that what's happening is that organizations, and specifically like a lot of the marketing leaders within those organizations, we've been so focused around account this and account that, and account based everything, and that's been that way for like 5 or 7 or 10 plus years now, it seems. But it's always been critically missing that buyer level data, right? Because I think that account based marketing is very directionally helpful. It helps you understand who are the accounts that are surging, where should we be focusing our efforts. But after that level, you kind of are in this black box of, I don't really know who to reach out to at this point. And I think that you can spend all this money, driving account-based engagement and driving awareness of, multiple people within the account. But if they're not the right people, and if they're not the actual individuals who are expressing the intent or who are actually involved in making that decision, a lot of marketing dollars that are going wasted and a lot of sales efforts that are going into nowhere. And so I think that what's happening right now is that people are starting to realize, like, oh, I actually do need to make money. We actually do need to drive some engagement and some conversion. And so account-based marketing, while it is valuable to some degree, there's a point where that stops, and you really do need to start getting back to who are the individual buyers, what are their behaviors, and what are the signals that I can be leveraging to improve my actual conversion rates.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things too, where in marketing, we have this really, I think, bad habit of oh, there's the next new thing. Let's run at that full steam. When it's always
no idea what you're
a
talking
combination
about.
of the next new thing and the last 4 old things. And you need all of those to actually work. And also, companies can't sign contracts. It's like a human being who puts a signature on something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like fashion is cyclical, right? And so are marketing trends. But I will say, you mentioned, for years, we as an industry of marketing have touted the fact that, accounts don't make decisions, people do. But then where have the people been in that equation for so long, right? So just another thing to think about is as we talk about the coming back to our buyers, it's really that's something that has been missing from this equation for so long, yet has always been there to some degree, and we're now finally starting to put that lens back on them.
So I think the interesting follow-up then, and Ellen, hop in if you've got anything too, is at least in my head, the rise of like, we're going to focus really hard on ABM has coincided with the rise of we're going to focus really hard with intent data. So, so much of the way that like we've been thinking about that and using that has been at that kind of account-based level. Like, can we start to get to like intent or a person level intent data? And is that a useful goal to aspire to?
I think it's so useful. I mean, when we look at accounts, there's tools out there, and I'm not talking specifically about Netline, but that will help us kind of understand the account and the level of intent around that. But then also some persona data too. So we are trying to get closer to who exactly is doing that searching. So we, as a revenue team, sales and marketing, can be smarter with our outreach. Extremely, extremely helpful, rather than just saying you've got this account that has 10,000 employees. Good luck, So it definitely it's helpful.
Yeah, and I think too, like, I don't want to give the impression that we should drop everything account based, because obviously we're going back to our buyers. Like, that's not. I think that there needs to be a healthy mix of everything. Like, it's kind of the same way where, I'm dating myself, I feel like, which is crazy to say because I'm not that old. but when we think about like social selling, like, do we remember that from like 10 years ago? And that was like the thing for salespeople. And now it's just become an integrated part of what it means to be an engaging salesperson. And so similarly with account-based marketing, intent data, digital marketing, demand gen, like all of these different components, it's never a matter of this is the one thing that we're doing and this is it. Like, it always has to be an acknowledgement of what are the slices of this pie that I can like have with each of these pieces, and how do I mix my marketing so that way I can have a really good and equal balance of different tactics and strategies to get me to where I need to be.
Yeah, I think along with that idea of like it being a mix of things, we've kind of recently learned through Netline's, content consumption report and all that stuff, that like, as much as I want to believe as a person who occasionally writes blog posts, that I'm going to write the perfect blog post and you're going to sign a multi-million-dollar contract based off how much you like the way I use commas. I don't know how it's supposed to work sometimes. Like, the way that buyers are consuming data or consuming information has gotten wild, and I think, I mean, scary on some levels. Do you want to talk through some of those numbers, Josh, just in case people don't know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is kind of scary, because I think back to like before the days of even just like the social media as we know it today, where it was like your channels are LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And back then it was still called Twitter. And I'm still going to call it Twitter. But it's just like, now you have so many different channels, so many ways of interacting with people, so many ways like for your buyers to engage and consume content within seconds. Like, it's insane to be a marketer these days, because there are so many things that you have to consider. So a couple of the stats that we found. So this is from Netline's annual content consumption report. We do this report annually. This is the 8th year that it's come out. And this is data that comes directly from our platform. I think this year we had around like 6.2 million content registrations that we were able to analyze and pull these insights from. So it's a lot of data. So speaking of data, but we saw that there's a 14% increase in user demand for gated content. And so there's the conversation also about like, do we gate content? Do we not gate content? That's a whole other conversation. I'm not even going to get into that. But users are saying that there is a 14% increase in their demand for this gated content. So take that with how you will. Secondly, we've also noticed that buying journeys are getting longer. So we refer to it as the consumption gap. And that is the time that it takes between when a user first registers for a piece of content and when they actually open. And we saw that that has increased to 31 hours. Last year, it was only 29. And so just because someone registers for your content does not mean that they have read it immediately. It usually takes them at least a day, probably safer to bank on 2 days. So buying journeys are getting longer. Buyers are hungrier than ever. But according to Forrester, there are around 17 interactions in a single buyer's journey. And that's just one out of the 6 to 10 buyers in an average buying committee. These are a lot of numbers, I know. But I'm building the story for you. And then lastly, according to the Content Marketing Institute, 57% of B2B marketers say that creating the right kind of content for their audience is their top challenge. Like, that's crazy to think about. And so buyers are hungry. They're taking longer to consume the content that they register for, but creating the right kind of content is a challenge. And so these odds are stacked against you. And so I think that this is also why buyer level intent data and these insights are becoming so prominent now, because we need any edge that we can get at this point in order to actually create the right content for our buyers and get them on the path of engagement with us.
And that's a wonderful setup. And Ellen, I'll throw this to you then. Can we talk about some like real world use cases of I'm not going to say Josh exploded my brain with too many numbers, but like, man, would I like to hear what I could like do with this?
Yeah. So I think let's talk about marketing first. We promised that we would go through some different use cases of the revenue team, marketing, sales, and customer success. But marketing is closest to home and the one that I'm closest to. So I definitely think that one of the top use cases that I think is the best is really looking at the intent that our ideal customer accounts are having and be able to show them different experiences on the website. And this sounds so hard. And honestly, it hasn't been. There's tools and solutions out there to help you do this, but we at Iron Horse use a tool called Intellimize that feeds in from all of your different intent sources from your CRM or marketing automation system. If you don't have intent sources, that will allow you to run segments based on an audience and then be able, when that audience comes to your website, to show them a different experience. So if I know that I have all of these accounts that have trending intent on account-based marketing services, I want to make sure when they come to my website that that's what I'm showing them, because I know that's what they're interested in. So I think that is an outstanding use case for putting intent data to work for marketers and kind of having like that conversion rate optimization mindset of getting the people on your site, they're on it, but showing them something that they're interested in to help them convert faster and getting them those touch points that they need. And then secondly, Josh mentioned this, is creating content based on content is hard. Content creation is hard, and creating it for your audience and knowing what they want. Having the intent data at your fingertips to be able to look at it and say, okay, I've got all of these accounts that have trending intent on content strategy. Well, that means our accounts really need help with understanding what is content strategy, what are their best practices. Let's create content around that. So it kind of gives you a path to knowing what are your accounts searching for to then be able to create that content that you need to serve to them. And I'm sure it's much different from an agency or a product company, but still you're able to get those insights on what your audience is wanting to be able to give them that content. So I think two very interesting use cases for marketing.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I really love the example that you gave, Ellen, about the website stuff. I feel like website marketing is so often, it's like the last thing that we think about because we always try to think about like, what are the channels that we can send out? And so inbound marketing is so, I don't know, there's something special about inbound marketing because it really kind of demonstrates, coincidentally, a buyer's intent that they want to learn more about you. And so producing web pages based on intent signals and keywords and trends and topics, I think that is like a very powerful thing because it really kind of demonstrates that you know what it is your buyers are looking for, and you're giving them the answers that they're searching for too.
And we always think that changing the website's really hard. And sometimes, yeah, it could be.
Sometimes it is. Yeah.
And sometimes it is. Absolutely. We went through a website rehaul last year and it was one of the hardest things we've ever done. But if you have a personalization tool that is layered on top of your website, you're not going in as a marketer to change code. I don't know how to do that. But what you can do is have this beautiful visual experience that I'm going to change text, and it makes it really easy for us. So there's definitely solutions out there to help us do that quickly and launch A/B tests and all of the things to capture the attention of that buyer when they're on our website. So,
yeah, a couple of other examples that I would give to related to the marketing use case is number one is that we saw one of Netline's customers, they used Intentive to build their ABM list. And based on the tests between a traditional ICP list and this list that used buyer level intent data, the results were pretty outstanding. And so we saw that we targeted 506 accounts with an average intent score of 4 out of 5. So highly engaged, definitely demonstrating some level of intent versus the more traditional account list, which had 793 accounts. So you had more accounts, but an average intent score of around 2 out of 5. So higher volume, but probably less qualified versus a tighter group of accounts that were definitely demonstrating intent on specific keywords and topics. And so out of these accounts, we saw that our customer had also seen that 50% of the intentive list had an intent score of 4 or more. So these accounts, basically what I'm trying to get at is that these accounts don't think of this play similarly with ABM. It's not a volume play, and it's never been a volume play. There needs to be a point where you decide, okay, I want to go after accounts that I know are in market, accounts that I know are qualified, accounts that when I hand them off to my sales team, they're not going to yell at me because they're not ready for a conversation. And so that's just another way to layer in this buyer level intent data in a way for marketing to deliver value to the sales team when it comes time.
The other thing that I think it's so interesting in that example, right, is there's that list that's like a 4 out of 5 and that list that's a 2 out of 5 with intent data. And you can and should market to both of those levels of intent. It's just having that insight lets you do it in the smartest way for those people, and really saves you time, energy, and money in the process, because they are, even if all of your other demographics and psychographics and whatever is there a corporate word for demographics that I should know?
Firmographics?
There you go. I was going to say corpographics, and I knew that was wrong. And your firmographic data, even if it matches on all the other things,
right?
Knowing where they are with that intent, makes such a huge difference for effectively marketing to them.
Yeah. It's that last mile, I think, that we've been missing for so long. That really helps us kind of narrow in on our budgets and our resources, like you said. Yeah.
I think it should be corpographics. I'm gonna write an email. We're gonna see if we can get that done.
We'll try to.
Here we go. We're claiming it today.
It's very cyberpunk of us. But kind of along those lines, so you've got all this info, you've got all this intent data, but I have a marketing team and I need to tell them what to do. How do you start to I think prioritize is the word I'm working towards, but once you start importing all of this data and understanding, we've got account level intent data, we've got buyer level intent data, how do I start to prioritize how to go after those accounts and hopefully, like you said, Josh, not have sales be mad at me by the time they see some names and emails?
Yeah, I think from a sales perspective, this is 101 on trying to prioritize accounts. But what we have done and found that really works is to help. There could be a lot of keywords that we're using for the intent data, a lot. And so what we try to do and what we've done on the Iron Horse side is break those keywords into my P1 priority 1 keywords and my priority 2 keywords. So for us, what that looks like is my P1 set is account-based marketing agency, account-based marketing consultancy. And so if accounts are trending in my P1 keywords, that is like gold. I know that those accounts are looking exactly for my services. Our P2 keywords are still very important for us to understand our content creation, for our sales team to understand what that account is interested in, but they're more like account-based marketing best practices. So it's account searching for some of the great stuff that we have on our blog, but may not be ready to buy. So I think my tip here is definitely looking at your intent keywords. And if you're able to split them and prioritize them, so then your sales team knows, okay, let me just search by my MQA accounts that are having intent within this P1 category, whatever that might be, then they can really start to break it down and look at some of those accounts that are having intent that is more ready to buy than some of the other keywords.
Yeah, I like that approach. Similarly, what you can do, and I'm going to build this in my mind palace as I'm talking about it, based on your P1 keywords. So you have a set of keywords that these are the top priority. When an account is surging on these keywords, I know that these are ones that are ready for sales. You can then go deeper into the individuals within that account to then surface who are the actual people within this account that are causing these keywords to be ones that are surging. Based on what you find, you can then determine, should I send other members of this buying committee into a marketing nurture? Because then while simultaneously sending the 1 or 2 individuals that are most active to a sales conversation, because then you're really able to demonstrate this orchestration within an account of multiple buying committee members. You're able to educate and nurture ones that may not be surging yet, but you can educate them in the meantime while you're having the conversation that you need to have with the individual that is surging. And so that way, when they are ready to have this conversation and to meet with the rest of their buying committee, everyone is on relatively the same page, and you are able to make sure that you're having the conversations that you need to have. Simultaneously, what you could also do is determine, where do we want to prioritize first? Are we going after logos? And we know that we are going after a firmographic or corpographic, Alex. We're going after this focus. Or are we more focused on targeting the individual buyers that are surging most on certain topics? Based on that split, you could send the accounts into something like an ABM programmatic display campaign. So you're nurturing them, you're educating them, you're giving them display ads as they continue on their journey. Simultaneously with the individuals, you could send them into marketing nurture. So thinking about emails, thinking about content syndication, what can you do to basically maximize your budgets and your resources, so that way you are sending the right person with the right message, right time, right? We've all heard that. But doing so with such a pointed spear that allows you to have this buyer level intent data filter on top of everything else that you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, Ellen, do you have a response before I talk more about mind palaces?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, as a sales rep, if I am trying to figure out who I should reach out to, I can use those buyer personas and try to figure that out. But I also have the intent at my fingertips to be able to serve up that content that they are interested in. So I'm able to share relevant content that aligns with the topic or solutions that they're showing intent for. So I think that makes total sense from a marketing perspective, is kind of putting them into a nurture. But if I'm a sales rep and I'm trying to really be pinpointed in who I'm reaching out to, what is the best thing to share with them? Well, I have really good insights on what that is based on what I'm seeing in these intent platforms.
I think, Josh, I love that you introduce that Mind Palace idea because the thinking about all of this is so complicated sometimes, especially when you're at that strategic, like we're trying to get systems in place level, right? And I think one thing, specifically when we're talking about sales, is that like you may have a sales team that is just not interested in doing that legwork that we've just been talking about, right? So then have someone else do it. Like it's gotta happen somewhere. Like, and if your sales team is crushing it and they're like, their close rates on calls is wild, and you're like, there's no way we would ever let this person go, then just someone else needs to help figure out how to get this stuff done. Because you can lead a horse to leads, but you can't make them filter by intent data.
There you go.
Professional webinar host. But when we are talking about intent data, it is usually, we got marketing doing part of it, sales doing part of it, and then a lot of times we just assume that after the close we're done. Never need to think about it again. Right? It's someone else's problem. Good luck, everyone else. But I mean, there's definitely space past the close where we can use intent data. And as we move toward a conclusion, I wondered if we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so something interesting. So we had a conversation with Forrester a couple months ago about how go-to-market teams are leveraging intent data. And one of their analysts had told us that this is like insider secrets. It's not really. You can find this online. So don't get mad at me, Forrester. But they found that they found that actually customer marketing use cases with intent data are one of the most underutilized areas for the data, which I think it's surprising, because I think that intent data, when it comes to customer growth, retention, upsell, cross-sell, expansion, like this is prime data for that. You're able to very easily see whether you're at the account or the individual level, regardless of what level you're splicing that at. You're able to see, like, are they engaging with competitive brands? Mm-hmm. Are they searching for something that might indicate that they are potentially going to churn? Or simultaneously, are there things that we have not educated our customers about that they could be doing with our platform that they aren't doing today? And so thinking about the use of buyer level and account level intent data for the purposes of customer marketing, customer growth, that field is wide open for you. And I think that the more that we can do to leverage this data for our customers, the more that our customers will feel heard. They'll feel like, that we actually pay attention to what they're doing. And hopefully that leads to greater lifetime values and greater contract yields.
I agree with everything.
Great. The thing I'll add is that, like, having intent data about your customers requires you to be cool about it, because like, don't panic if you see that, like, oh, they're trending a little bit toward, like, maybe some of our competitors. Like, the move is not, how do we, like, smother them with love and affection until they like us again? It's like strategy plays into that as well, because this is like middle school relationship advice stuff, right? But just like, be a cool, normal company that they'll like. And so there are ways to leverage that aren't creepy. As we kind of move toward a close, like I said, we talked about two different groups: sales, marketing. There's obviously C-suite stuff involved. Ellen, you talked about how hard it is to get a website updated. Getting everybody on the same page with all this stuff is super important.
It is. And one of the stats that we were talking about was 70% of marketers are using more than one intent platform. So we have all of these tools, and we've mentioned a couple on the phone, and it's hard to get everybody to use them and on board with them. We recently did some research on some sales effectiveness and sales enablement and understanding the sales side, and 50% more than 50% of sales said that they want marketing to provide account insights based on account activity. So that is signaling to me that marketing is providing this. Marketing is setting this up. Marketing is really working with these platforms to get this information in. So what that means to me is that the sales team isn't trained on where to go find this without marketing having to hand it to them. So I do think, how we help with that is having frequent meetings. Let's not just set up the platform, and marketing gets a lot of training on these platforms. So let's make sure that sales knows how some of the basics are working, how they were set up, what decisions did we make, how to use them. So we can do that by frequent meetings, leveraging automation. These tools have really good automation to send alerts and make sure that, if we're living in Slack, then let's get Slack alerts. If we're in the CRM only, well, let's make sure that data lives there. So there's some work that we need to do to work together better. But the stat of that over 50% of sales wants marketing to provide, it just really speaks to there needs to be a little bit more enablement there.
Yeah. I would add to that too, to just say, I think that there needs to be a clear ownership of different roles and responsibilities when it comes to leveraging this type of data, right? I know that I've gone on a lot of tangents today, so apologies. Congratulations if you've been able to keep up, because I don't think I have. I would say, just to summarize kind of the marketing, sales, customer success uses for intent data. When it comes to marketing, really understanding like this is about identification and nurturing, right? It's about understanding where should we even be heading and who should we be engaging most. Then when it comes to sales, I think it's about penetration and about engagement. So thinking about and prioritization, right? So thinking about now that we know who the accounts and who the individuals are, like sales can go in, understand who within those accounts is actually engaging, and then actually have those conversations with them. And then when it comes to customer success, it's about monitoring. It's about nurturing and growth. It's about seeing what are the keywords, what are the topics that they're in, that our customers are interested in, and then being able to create marketing and sales plays that reflect that and address those needs and make that experience a lot better for that customer. I think too, when it comes to that sales stat, Ellen, that you mentioned, I think that as marketing, we need to do a better job of giving our sales teams a better starting point of where to begin when it comes to this data. Like we've talked a lot about different use cases, and even just those like 6 can get quite confusing quite quickly. And so giving them a daily starting point, and even the enablement that we take for granted, because I think that does happen where, marketing is usually the one involved in making a lot of these purchase decisions. It's the marketing manager that is going through and sitting on those calls. They're talking with the vendors that are vetting solutions. And so they're getting a lot of education and enablement that is not getting communicated or translated, maybe even to other members of the marketing team, and especially not to other departments. And so thinking about giving that same level of context and education and really being deliberative with the information that you're sharing, I think will ultimately help kind of improve that relationship in a way that's more than just like, we need to be aligned. It's like, well, yeah, but like, how does that actually happen? It happens through education. It happens through contextualization. It happens through being really intentional about the information that you're sharing. So just some thoughts on that.
I think that is a wonderful world peace view to kind of wrap our conversation up on. Like, let's all get along. Josh, you're right. We covered a lot of ground. We introduced some new buzzwords that are going to be sweeping the industry any moment now. If you're watching this and you need to catch back up, we will have an on-demand link ready for you soon. Yeah, it's time to wrap this up. Y'all are one of my favorite panels. I love anytime we get to chat. Josh, where can people go to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, so you can visit us at www.netline.com. You can find our content consumption report in our resources section there as well, along with a bunch of other things that we've created over the last few months. So definitely check that out. And yeah, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn or email jbaez@netline.com if you have any questions specifically.
Thank you again so much, Josh. Ellen, I know both of our stuff kind of lives at ironhorse.io. We work at the same place, if you didn't pick up on that, everybody. But is there anywhere else or anything in particular that you think people should check out while they're there?
I think our next coffee break is going to be on measurement, so tune back in for that. But I talked about a sales enablement report that we did. If you go to our resource center, it's the top resource. Check out the data. Very interesting, especially if you're wanting to get along and work better together. Check out some of those data points and how to do that. But yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well,
thank you, Alex.
Yeah, of course. And everybody else, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. And until next time, break's over. Let's get back to work. Bye, everybody.